Right, hello. I thought I would just make a quick video. Rather than repeat everything that's on the website, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what statisticians do. The only thing I'm going to tell you about the course is that it is really aimed at teaching you how to do research. So the process of planning, collecting data, analysing data and interpreting the data, that's what the course is really based around. It's very enjoyable, involves a fair amount of writing as it does maths, but most people who do it enjoy it. So, statistics are used to help us make decisions. In a situation where you ask human beings to make decisions, they usually disagree with each other, argue a lot, and in the end the person who is more important gets to make the decision. That's not a very healthy way to make decisions, and so we use data to help us find out if something is good or bad, or whether we accept something or not. Some examples of where this is used, for example, in the world of pharmaceuticals, which are drugs. If they discover something they think will make people better, they can't just give it to a load of people and say, do you feel better? And then if they say yes, sell it. They have to do a lot more than that, so they go through a process called clinical trials, which gives them a much better idea mathematically as to whether the drug has had an influence or impact on somebody, and therefore it doesn't come down to one person to say, yes, that's a good thing. Opinion polls is another thing where statistics is used quite, that's the whole point of opinion polls, is essentially it's statistics. You ask people what they think, and then you try and work out how that applies to the rest of the population. If you followed the recent elections that have happened, you'll know that there's been a lot of discussion about the quality of opinion polls, and if you look more deeply into it, it's because there are people voting now that haven't traditionally voted, and it's very hard to predict something when what we say the goalposts have all moved, so everybody's doing something slightly different, and therefore all the previous experiences is slightly wrong. So it becomes more difficult to predict the outcome, but statisticians are heavily involved in that, because it's obviously a very useful thing to know. This is reference to something which we would now call big data, which is where shops and other establishments collect data about you. Google and such like will do the same thing. When you go to Sainsbury's and you buy some food and you give them your Nectar card, what the Nectar card does is give you some points, but essentially it gives them the right to record everything that you've bought, and if they know what you've bought, then they can target you with advertising to buy other things. They can know what is popular in their shop, and what kind of person buys something. So if you buy a cheesecake and a tin of beans, then that means maybe that people who buy beans like cheesecake, that kind of thing, and they look into that kind of side of things. It's a very, very interesting and powerful pathway from a statistical point of view, because there's obviously, it's a new area and there's lots of discoveries going on. I put this on because endangered species is another thing that people won't necessarily have thought about. So for example, if you wanted to find out how many bears there are in the world, you can't just go around trying to find bears and counting them, because it's not very easy and would be very expensive. So statisticians are involved in trying to find out things like that, and obviously that involves theories and such like. And then finally, I wanted to talk about misrepresenting information by not lying but using statistics. So here you can see an example of two sentences, neither of which are factually wrong, but both of which are used in a way to try and make us think something or agree with something that somebody else thinks. So if you look at this picture, what you're seeing is something that's not wrong but doesn't tell the whole story. So that's really it. I'd like you to consider doing statistics, and realise that it involves quite a lot of writing as well as quite a lot of maths. I wish you well.